The Sports Scouting Report with Lee Burkeen, brought to you by Harvey Autos in Shreveport, Bossier City, the name you've trusted for years. Geico, the insurance savings you expect. Supreme Chevrolet, expect more from Supreme Automotive Group and Gonzalez. Total Car Care, tire shop and automotive repair in Baton Rouge. Bollinger Shipyards, 75 years of delivering high-quality vessels. And the Bugman, we get them before they get you. Here's your host, Lee Burkeen.
Hi everyone, I'm your host Lee Burkeen, the Sports Scouting Report podcast, and also owner of Louisiana Football Magazine since 1997. Started out of my apartment with my mom, Dolores Thompson, my late mother, Dolores LeBlanc Thompson. I'm dedicating my whole year to her this year. My mom passed away March the 1st, a little over a year ago, and she was with me from the beginning, from year one, for 27 years. We're going to talk about part one, defense, today for LSU. We're going to talk about the defensive line, and I'm going to go as deep as I can before we got to cut it off and do part two, so we're not too long of a show. You know, nobody likes to watch more than 25, 30 minutes, but we're going to have a second part two for defense to finish it, which might just cover DBs. And then I'm going to talk a little bit, probably part two, of break down who transferred and who graduated, who's going NFL, and kind of give a numbers standpoint. We could all do this in our head, but I'm just kind of doing it for people that maybe want me to do it, right? It's not a rocket scientist deal, but just kind of share the numbers, where everybody went, and a breakdown of, you know, how many new players are coming into the program total, and it's just kind of interesting facts and data. But we're going to talk about the the defense, and we're going to talk about D-line first, which is a very interesting topic right now because LSU lost a lot of defensive talent, and they didn't have a good defense this past year, and they've got to get the D-line dominant to get the defense back with the new D coordinator, Blake Baker. When we come back, we're going to talk about the defensive line for LSU. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Lee Burkeen, your host, Sports Scouting Report podcast, also owner of Louisiana Football Magazine. Go to our website and read our articles on recruits. We're writing on 224 players right now still, because we like to interview them and ask them why they signed with whoever they signed with in the second signing period. That's lafootballmagazine.com. And be sure to subscribe, share, and like our show. Please tell your friends. That'll help us grow. Please take the time to do that. We would appreciate it. And if you already have, thank you. Thank you for doing it. Let's get into the D-line. I mean, D-line's got three positions, three techniques, right? Nose guard, that's the guy in the middle that's going to weigh 3 to 350, that's going to clog up everything. He's not going to have a lot of stats. Kind of like a Tyler Shelvin. He didn't have any sacks, many tackles, but you take on all those blockers, you just kind of knock down that O-line, and everybody else makes the plays. Well, LSU needs the nose guard spot to improve because they lost a great player in Mikey. Mikey left as a junior. I'm still, that's a tough one right there. He had 2 sacks in the bowl game from Missouri. Mikey Wingo, who I think is a first-round draft pick, at 6 foot 300. And he reminds me of Henry Thomas, an inch shorter. But man, he's so phenomenal as a D lineman, and LSU's going to miss him. And then Mason Smith went pro early. I wish he'd have came back. He came off the knee injury. To his defense, you usually don't look good till 2 years after, but he came right back, and he had missed the spring. He didn't have a good year. And I think he's more of a DN. If he's a DN in the NFL, he'll make it. He's not ready to be a D tackle. He's not strong enough. He doesn't have the technique. But if he's a DN, and LSU needed him as a D tackle, then I think he'll do well in the NFL because Al Woods proved from Elton High School, who I know very well, great kid, great family, is still in the NFL and only had like 1 sack at LSU, okay? I think fans wanted Mason Smith to dominate, and that doesn't always happen. And Donnell Hunter had like 2 sacks at LSU. Donnell Hunter might end up being the all-time sack leader in the NFL when he's done, from Texas, with the Vikings. I'm not saying Mason Smith's going to be a starter in the NFL, but I wish him well. I really do. But I think he'll be a DN, and the pro teams know that. and he'll improve his draft stock because they're not going to draft him to go inside. And we tried to play inside for LSU. It just didn't help him or LSU, but that's where they needed him. They were short on bodies, but LSU's got to do a better job of recruiting depth on D-line. They've just got to get enough D tackles where you're not borrowing and you're playing the same guy too many reps. You know, Mikey Wingo got gassed, you know, playing too much. So did Jacoby and Guillory, and we'll go through these guys. So anyway, with that being said, they lost 3 D tackles on the team that had eligibility left that all left also, which also hurts because before you're going to see their window, they're all gone. So all the depth left and your 2 young talented guys left. So let's talk about what's coming back. They're going to build the D-line, the D-tackle position with Jacoby and Guillory, who I love this kid. To his fairness, they didn't have a D-line coach this past year. In fairness to all of them, even Mason Smith, the D-line coach, prayers to him, was sick this past year. They had a grad assistant, and they had this guy, an analyst, step in. They didn't get the D-line coach, and they needed. Had Pete Jenkins come back at like 78 years old, whatever, almost 80. I mean, they didn't have the D-line coach they needed in the spring, summer, or fall, and I think it hurt the position, hurt the defense. Well, I think Jacoby and Guillory now has a D-line coach. And you're going to see this kid blossom. You saw the effort last year. He's 6'2", 325. He's your starting nose guard, technique-wise. He's your nose guy under center. And I think Jacoby's going to have a phenomenal senior redshirt year. I think he'll be a high draft pick. He just needed a little coaching, and he didn't get that last year. Staying at D-tackle, you got Jalen Lee from Live Oak, who came from Florida, where he played at Florida 2 years. He went to Live Oak High School around Baton Rouge. If Jalen can get in shape and just the light come on, he's a great player. He's got it. He's 6'3", 308, 310, and he can move. He's more of a nose guard, so he's going to be up behind Jacoby, and hopefully he gets better and becomes what they think he can become. Staying at D-tackle, that's where things get really thin, okay? And that's where you got to, if you want to beat Georgia and you want to beat Alabama, even though Alabama has a new coach, you want to beat even the Tennessees and the Ole Misses now, you better have a strong D-tackle position. And right now, I think Savion Jones ought to go inside. That'll give you your third D-tackle. I think he's 6'6", 285. He's not going to ever be quick enough at 270 to be agile to rush the passer. He's more of a straight line rusher, and he's strong. He's a great player. But if he gets up to 295, 300, which is only a couple of hamburgers, right? From 285, I think he could be a Michael Brockers. Michael Brockers was not flashy, but he was strong, tall, strong, and took up space, and linebackers make tackles. That's what happens. But Savion Jones could be the guy that, snap your fingers, could just change his whole position. So move him inside. And then Parrish Shan, who's a DN that played this past year as a DN for LSU. I know Kelly hasn't said Savion and Parrish are going to go to D-tackle, but they're already D linemen, they're DNs, right? But Parrish Shan, if he bulks up, he's 280, 6'5", and lean. If he eats a couple of hamburgers and gets to 300, there's your fourth tackle. And he could still run a 4.9 40. And he's not super fast off the edge, but it would be a good transition, I think, if Shan and Savion moved to D-tackle. Then you got 4 D-tackles, okay? Recently, Coach Kelly admitted that he's moving an O-lineman to D-line. He's trying to find an extra body to see if he can find another player. And that player is Kaimo McAnally from Niceville, Florida, who's been an offensive guard. Big guy, and he's 6'4", 315. Another nose guard, another technique D-tackle. And hopefully he shows something in the spring to where you don't have to be flashy and get sacks. You just got to be strong and cause havoc inside. Let everybody else make the tackles, the linebackers. So that's the plan. And then he would be the 5th tackle. in this whole scenario, right? And then true freshman Dominique McKinley could come in and be brought along at a slow pace at 6'6", and I think he'll be about 290 by the time summer's over. He's 280 right now, and he runs a 4.8. He can run a 4.7 right now. He'll probably go to a 4.8, which is phenomenal for 6'5 and a half, 290, where he'll be in the fall. And that'll give you 60 tackles, okay? And then you got Sean Washington, who signed from a junior college, who's from Warren Easton High School, who was at Georgia. When I saw Sean Washington play high school football, I thought he was a generational talent. He missed his senior year to concentrate on grades, meaning he was eligible his senior year, but he chose to just concentrate on grades and not play his senior year at Warren Easton. That was told to me by the coach, and that was his decision to make. But Sean Washington, S-H-O-N-E, will probably win the nose guard spot or rotate with Jacoby and Gilroy. You really need two. So, 1A, 1B, right? But Sean Washington is a phenomenal player. He's he'll probably be the strongest player on the team day one. 6'4", 310, muscle, big hands, big legs. Was squatting 600 in high school, was benching 400 in high school. I'm sure he's almost 500 pounds now on the bench. But Sean Washington gives you 7D tackles. Okay, just to give you an idea. And then you can go 8D tackles with a talented freshman from Westgate High School in New Iberia, Demarion Johnson, who's 6'1.5", 295 pounds, and has great feet. It reminds me of a taller version of Mikey Wingo, who just went pro as a junior. So, if Savion Jones agrees to go inside to be a D tackle and Paris Shan, you have 7 D tackles. I still think you need one more to make it 8 or 9 with Kaimo moving from O-line. So I think, and from what I'm hearing, they might pick up a D tackle from Tulane, and they also got a chance to pick up another D lineman from Texas, because Texas doesn't count as an in-conference school for the new transfer rule because they're not in the conference yet. And Bo Davis, the new D-line coach, can grab one of his D linemen from Texas, maybe a couple. They might end up with 3 more new D linemen after the May 1 to May 15th portal. So let's talk about DNs. You have Deshaun Womack to build around, who's phenomenal, from Maryland. Plays a freshman, 6'5", 255, lean, is going to probably play at 270 this year at 6'5", 6'6". Got a chance to be a first-round pick one day. I love to know that LSU's got a DN that can build around that looks like Deshaun Womack. Then you got Braden Swinson, who's proven, had a lot of sacks this past year, was a transfer from Oregon, 6'4", probably weigh about 255 this year, 260, can run a 4.7. So you got 2 DNs that are really athletic, dominant, tall, can run. And then you got Jason Howard from Minnesota, Player of the Year last year, who's going to be phenomenal. He's 6'4", 6'5", and he'll weigh around 250 this year from 240. And then you've got Dylan Carpenter from Sandoval, who redshirted, who's 6'4", 6'5", will weigh around 260 this year instead of 250, and he runs about a 4.7. So you've got 4 DNs to build around that have a year under their belt, or 2 years under their belt, or 3 years under their belt. So who's going to play DN besides those guys? Well, Kalijah Cobbins from Destrehan will be an outside linebacker DN that can come in and give you a pass rush. He'll play around 230. He was 215 at Destrehan. He'll be 230 in the fall. 6'3", 6'4". C.J. Jackson coming in from Georgia, who is 6'4", 220. Will probably play around 230. Runs a 4.6. He's another DN. Gabriel Rilliford from Evangel Christian is a phenomenal player who can actually play inside if they need him to, and be a true DN at 6'2", 260, and runs a 4.69 40. And then you got Ahmad Bro, who Coach Kelly said will go inside to play tackle. I think that's just kind of, putting a kid at 2 spots in case there's an injury. Ahmad's a DN. Ahmad's a great talent. I think Ahmad could be a generational talent from Ruston High School. He's 6'4", he's 245 of muscle, runs about a 4.6. He'll probably play at 250. There's not a more athletic, more gifted freshman DN in the country than Ahmad Broke. And I think Coach wants to try him inside, and maybe they might put the weight on him and make him a tackle. I don't know, but he's a very gifted player. Until everything else is settled, I think he's going to try and see if he can play that spot. And who else do you have? Walk-ons. You have Lane Blue from Neville, who's been a great leader on the team, can play DN. You got Jack Abieta from Country Day, whose brother's a quarterback at Tulane. He's a walk-on. You got Preston Hickey, who's a walk-on from Oklahoma State, but with St. Paul's. He could play some nose guard for LSU. He's 320, 6'1". And so that kind of rounds it out for D-line. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about linebacker. Who does LSU have outside of Harold Perkins? We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. Lee Burkeen, host of Sports Scouting Report podcast. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the segment on D-line. This segment's going to be on linebackers. This will be our last segment for part one of defense. We took a little bit of time on D-line, a long time, because there's a lot to talk about. You know, everybody, I bet you if you interviewed 100 people in Baton Rouge and you asked them, who plays linebacker at LSU, and they'd probably know one name, and that's Harold Perkins. And that's well-deserved. He's a generational talent. And, you know, Harold did things for LSU last year that you got to be a team player to do. They like corners, so he played corner. And I don't know if people realize that, but he played DB, and he's a linebacker. He played running back and scored a touchdown in the bowl game against Wisconsin. He played inside, outside. He played at the line. He did everything. And yeah, his stats were not as high for sacks, but he had to be a Swiss Army knife for LSU's defense because LSU couldn't put enough DBs on the field. They didn't have anybody. And not good recruiting, right? That's why a lot of those guys were fired. But now you got a new D coordinator in Blake Baker, who signed Harold Perkins when Blake was here the first time. They pulled Blake away from Missouri, where he did a great job as D coordinator. Blake played at Tulane, grew up in Houston, Texas, and always loved LSU. Harold Perkins will be the old Harold Perkins now because LSU's finally got better DBs, more depth, and the D-line will work itself out, and they have more linebacker talent. Greg Penn is a guy that people need to know. I know a lot of fans know him, but the general fan probably wouldn't know who Greg Penn is. But this will be his third year to start at 6'2", 238, 240. Came out of DeMatha High School in Maryland, great school for talent. Greg's a pro prospect, will be a starter in the NFL. So you got Harold, you got Greg, and then you got Whit Weeks, who was a freshman last year out of Georgia. And Whit's going to be an NFL guy. So you got 3 NFL linebackers. And after that last year, you had those guys last year, but after that, you didn't have any depth last year at linebacker. This year they have a little bit of depth. You got Wes Weeks, who's I think is going to have a great senior year, the brother of Whit, who's 6'2", 235, 240. You got Christian Brathwaite from Texas, who's a freshman that plays special teams. He's going to come in his own at 6'1", 225, can run. That's a guy I want to see in the spring. Princeton Malbrough has finally moved to linebacker from DN. He's a transfer from Northwestern State, played at Lafayette Christian, and he's an intriguing linebacker that can run. He actually is 6'2", about 230 pounds, and he's strong. Interested to see what he can do in spring. And then you got some talented freshman linebackers coming in. I talked to Jess Curtis the other day at Manning, who coached Tylen Singleton 3 of his 4 years. Tylen Singleton is a freshman coming in from Manning High School. That's 6'1", 215 pounds now. He'll probably play at 220, and runs a 4.5. He's going to remind you a lot of Harold Perkins on the ability to run. He's a good-looking kid. Again, more talent at linebacker. And then you got Xavier Atkins, who is 6 foot 205, can run a 4.5 40. Originally from Jonesboro Hodge, Louisiana, but finished his final 2 years of high school in Houston, Texas. Then you got Davion Keys, who comes from a big-time program in Texas. He was MVP of their defense 2 years in a row, 6 foot, 5'11", 220, but a plugger like a Devin White. I'm not saying he's Devin White, but he's built that way, runs 4'6", and powerful. And again, another plugger for LSU at linebacker. Not a lot of linebackers, but again, more depth. Last year, all LSU had was really 3 linebackers, and maybe 4. Now they have 7 to 8, and they might add another linebacker May 1st to May 15th in the portal to get another linebacker on campus if they've got the numbers and they can get one more guy on the team outside of getting another running back, a punter, possibly, and a couple of D linemen. Linebackers improved. I think D-line will be improved when it's said and done because of Bo Davis coming in and the D-line coach they got out of Missouri. You got 2 D-line coaches, which is even better. Blake Baker will coach safeties, and he's also a linebacker coach, your D coordinator. But I like the group. I like that Harold Perkins is going to have more talent around him. The D-line will be better. The DBs, we're going to get to them in the next segment. But I think Harold's numbers are going to triple again. I think it's going to be Harold Perkins' best year. He's going to be the biggest he's been. He's going to be the strongest he's been. He's now, experienced. He's mature. And what you saw him do as a freshman, that was as just a kid, 17, 18 years old, when he dominated Arkansas and Ole Miss his freshman year. You'll see a little bit of that, I believe, again this coming year as a junior. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking about DBs, where LSU needed a lot of help. They didn't have a lot of talent this past year, but they have vastly improved. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. Lee Burkeen, your host of the Sports Scouting Report podcast. Also owner of Louisiana Football Magazine since 1997, and our website, lafootballmagazine.com. And if you love our show and you want us to grow, which we will, please subscribe, like, and share. Hit the buttons on our page on YouTube. And if you have already, thank you very much. Appreciate you. We're going to talk about defensive backs for LSU in this final segment of part 2 of defense. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of improving guys, but more talent, and maybe not completely done. LSU might add a safety or a corner in the portal May 1st to 15th. Depending on what's available and who they can bring in, you might see one more player come in to make sure this position's strong. And I think the numbers alone are double from last year. The talent's double. I think it's just a matter of how good they're going to be. Who do you build around at DB? You build around some experience. Does one guy stick out? Not really. Do you have enough corners now? Yes. Do you have enough safeties? There's a lot of them. Who's going to step up in spring? Counting the early enrollees. Who's going to step up in the summer and the fall? But the talent is there. And the key is they have talent. Last year they didn't have enough talent. They have so much talent, Sage Ryan might not see the field, and he struggled. But to his fairness, I don't think they had a DB coach last year. The DB coach that was let go, I don't think they were. Anyway, I don't think the DB position was strong because of the coaching. Coach Kelly had to help, coach that position. When that happens, it's not good. But Sage Ryan, if he settles in a strong safety or nickel, that's where he's good. If he has to start or play corner or safety, not good. If you have to rely on Sage Ryan to be one of your starters, he's a nickel guy. He's a nickel guy that can cover a little bit of ground, and he's a great athlete doing that. That's what he's good at. And that's where I think you'll see him again. I think he'll shock some people this year because he's going to play where he is most utilized to help LSU and to help him. Last year he had to play because they didn't have any corners. He was not a corner on the island guy. That's not who he is. But that's where he had to play last year. They didn't have anybody. So let's talk about safeties. Major Burns comes back. I love his effort. He's a Baton Rouge kid from Madison Prep. Major just needs to fill out and get stronger, and I think this is his year to do it. He came in at 180 from Georgia as a transfer. He's now about 200. He might be 210 for fall. That's when you're going to see the big-time Major Burns. And Major can go to his more natural position, strong safety. I don't think he's a free safety. I think LSU still needs to find a free safety out of a bunch of guys I'm going to mention. That's just my opinion. Major, less space, better player. A lot of space, not as good of a player. And he had to play free safety because they didn't have anybody last year. So if they put Major Burns at strong, I think you see an all-SEC player at 6'2", 200, 210. Instead of 180, 185 when he came in, 190 when he was thin, trying to hit these guys. And the safety, you need to be big. Ryan Yates is a wild card at strong and free safety. He was a freshman last year from Texas. Ryan 6'1", 210, 215. He might even go to linebacker. Let's see where he goes. He might outgrow the position. Kylan Jackson, who was a freshman last year from Zachary, is 6'3", 205, 210. He might end up being your free safety. He looks the part. Staying at free safety, the guy I think that if he plays the way he did in high school, if he can hit that next step, he could be the next great free safety at LSU, and that's Deshaun McBride from Denham Springs. Deshaun is all of 6'2" and a half, about 205. He'll probably play at 210, and he's built like Eric Reed. You know, he's built like that classical Chad Jones. And he can read a quarterback. He is a honey badger at 6'2", 6'3". He anticipates balls for interception. He did not have a good senior year at Denham. But his junior year was the best junior tape in the state of what he did. He had like 3 pick sixes his junior year at Denham Springs. If they get the junior year back from Denham and he can really progress, Deshaun McBride, if he can take that spot at free safety, then that would give him Colin Jackson and him. And then you can have Ryan Yates, Major Burns at strong, Sage Ryan at strong, Matthew Langlois, if he comes back, could be a strong safety. So it gives you better numbers and more talent there. And then you got Jordan Gilbert, who can play strong safety from Texas A&M, from U-High. He has 3 years experience at A&M. He did a good job at A&M. He's a Baton Rouge kid from U-High. He's 6'1", 200, 205. He gives you another strong safety. So, you know, he's in the contention to beat out Sage Ryan, to beat out Ryan Yates. You know, they didn't have those numbers there last year. They didn't have enough bodies. And there's another free safety in the mix named Michael Turner from John Curtis. I saw him play free safety in high school and receiver. He's a phenomenal player. The last free safety to come out of John Curtis that went to LSU that was phenomenal was Clarence LeBlanc. 6'3", 190 when he came to LSU, ended up playing at 210. I think Michael Turner reminds me a lot of Clarence LeBlanc. He just needs to gain the weight and fill out. But he will hit you. He covers ground. He's tough. He's 6'2", about 170. They listed him at 155. He'll play at 180 this year. He'll end up being 210 in about a year. So if Deshaun McBride and Michael Turner can just be who I think they can be, then all of a sudden the safety position is strong like it was in the past. When you had Brandon Taylor, you had Chad Jones, Eric Reed, Craig Stelz, Grant Delpit. Are you with me, people? Listen, I mean, those are great ones. That's what LSU needs. They need McBride, Michael Turner. They need Ryan Yates. They need these guys to be major Burns, to be major players. They didn't have that this past year or the year before. Cornerback, you have a lot of flexibility. I love Javian Tavinio. Javian from Texas especially had a great freshman year, I thought. He had to play. Big back, 6'1", 200-pound DB. Could play nickel, could play on an island, could play safety. But I love him as a big corner because he's physical against the run. He's physical. And I think he'd make a great nickel back where he had to play outside because they didn't have anybody last year. Ashton Stamps got to play last year from Rommel, a true freshman, and played with an injury. And he was, getting bigger. Now he's going to be blossomed at 6'2", 6'1", 190. Came in at 170 from Rommel. He's a great player. He just had to play before he was ready. Jeremiah Hughes, who showed some ability from Nevada, from Bishop Gorman High School as a freshman, 6'1", 190, a true corner. Showed some ability, but again, they had to play him. They didn't have anybody else. J.K. Johnson missed the year last year, transfer from Ohio State, from Missouri. Was teammates of Markaway and Mingo, former LSU players, all from the same high school in Missouri. But J.K. Johnson had 2 years of experience at Ohio State. He's a guy on the island that can guard, the speedsters in the SEC, and he's 6 foot 185. Then you got Zy Alexander, who missed most of the year last year from Loreauville, who's finally, bigger, stronger, and ready. He has a year of experiencing SEC play. He's 6'2", about 190, will be a senior. And I'm curious to see how he looks in the fall. Here's where it gets interesting at corner. Young guys. Kai Prin is going to be a corner in the spring, moved from receiver from Ascension Catholic. A lot of ability, 6 foot, 185. Jari Brown, a transfer from Ohio State. Played at Warren Easton, but also finished high school football in Ohio. He has a lot of ability, 5'11", 185. Jawan Johnson, if he doesn't play quarterback, from Lafayette Christian, played corner, safety, great football player. Bernard Causey will probably sit out this year from Kennedy. Was a cornerback they signed that runs 4.4. But then you got Joel Rogers, who can play nickel corner and safety from West Feliciana. I think he's going to be a stud, by the way. He reminds me of Brandon Taylor, who played at LSU from Franklinton a few years ago. And the final corner, who I think is going to remind people of Honey Badger, I think he's going to make the biggest impact of any high school DB they brought in, is Wallace Foster from Warren Easton. Wallace was a 4-year starter at Warren Easton and made plays that you just can't coach. I mean, he can read, he's 4'4" in the 40. He, again, like Tyron, he's about 5'10", 170, 165. Don't let that fool you. He plays big. He'll lock you down. He'll guard the fastest receiver. He runs a 4.4, and he can make plays on the ball. That's what LSU needs. I think Wallace Foster might even win a job. I mean, you really need 3 corners. So Javian will be 1, Stamps, and I think Wallace, obviously, and then you got Hughes, and then you've got Jari Brown to make up a core that LSU didn't have last year, and then Zy Alexander. You didn't really have 5, 6 guys. And again, they might take one more corner from May 1st to May 15th on the next portal. I predict they'll take maybe one more corner since Bernard Causey won't play this year. They were counting on him maybe to be in the mix. Or they can move Michael Turner in the corner from John Curtis as a freshman and move him back to safety. So it'll all work out. It's just a matter of who is going to step up. And all these guys they got in, they brought in way more than they needed. They knew that, and they just want to see who's going to step up and win the jobs. And the defense has a chance to be phenomenal because they have Blake Baker, Bo Davis, Corey Raymond. They got a great staff that's going to come in. The kids are going to love these coaches. I think the defense is going to be vastly improved. The offense is going to be the same. I'm not doing a prediction until after the second portal's over with, May 15th. But I hope you enjoyed the show, part 2 of defense. Just wanted to share it for those diehards. I mean, we all go through talking about LSU, and you all look at a depth chart, and this is just talking about it vocally. Numbers, let's go about this before I end the show. But LSU lost 16 players to either the pro draft or gave up football or graduated. 16, which is normal. They lost 4 players to the draft early, 4 juniors, Mason Smith, Neighbors, Brian Thomas, and Mikey Wingo. All those guys are going to start in the NFL. But they lost 16 players overall. If you count Mason Lunsford, who gave up football in the O-line, who came in from Maryland. And here's another interesting stat. 17 players transferred. That's where the NIL really clouds things. I wish Jackson McGowan would have stayed a tight end from Ohio. He transferred to Wisconsin. That's, again, an NIL thing. He would have been another tight end. I wish Fitzgerald West would have stayed. He's going to ULL, D-tackle. I mean, they lost Quincy Wiggins to Colorado. To his fairness, he didn't get coached. He's going to Colorado. Taji Hill going to Oregon State, another D tackle. Bryce Langston left. I don't know where he's going. Lance Hurd left for Tennessee. This is all portal stuff. I mean, this is what I don't like about college football. These are guys that would have made a difference. Marlon Martinez would have been in the top 10 on the O-line side in the spring. He's going to Mississippi State. Logan Diggs going to Ole Miss to running back. That hurts. And Jalen Brown, a young receiver, it won't show up, but he's going to be a great player. He's transferring back to Florida to play Florida State. Jalen Brown's going to start for him. He was just buried behind Neighbors and Thomas and Shelton Sampson and Chris Hilton. He was just buried. But they did lose him because he wanted to go start, and he wasn't guaranteed to start over everybody we mentioned in the first show for receivers for offense. So, but 33 players left the program before May 1st, the second portal. After the second portal, they could actually have over 40 kids that are no longer with the team, and actually it might rise to where there's 50 new players or more than 50, which is the whirlwind with NIL. And that's what I want to point out. 33 players left the program total. That's graduation, guys going pro or giving up football. 17 transferred. A number like that usually would be 5 or 6. 17 that I counted. Counting Greg Brooks, whose prayers to him and his family, DB, and hopefully one day he can get back and play football again. He'll have a year left when he is healthy. Hopefully he will come back strong. Prayers to you, Greg Brooks, and your family. Great player to the LSU program from West Jefferson High School. Would be great if LSU could get him back as a DB for the 24 season. But he's in that 17 that's not playing right now or considered gone from the team. But if he heals up, he'll be one of the top DBs in the country again, Greg Brooks. And prayers again to him and his family. I hope you enjoyed the show, part 2 of defense. From here on out, we're going to be doing shows at high schools and interviewing recruits and coaches. Again, hit the free subscribe button. And again, thank you. If you have subscribed to our show, appreciate you doing that. Thank you for supporting what we do. And go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, where we'll be posting stories. And also our magazine will start having previews.
Thanks for watching the Sports Scouting Report with Lieber King.